Way. Now you got one, and you've discovered your great new pad has rules you need to live by. Denise Lash is the founder of Lash Condo Law and has a few of the more condo rules you may come across. Denise, you're joining us again. You always bring these great scenarios as to how one can live in a condo and what their rights are. You've got 5 new ones for us. Let's start with the first one. The condo has bulk cable, but this person doesn't want it. Can they just opt out, or so they don't have to pay that?
Well, they do. And the way condominium living works is that everybody pays their common expenses. Common expenses are determined by looking at your annual budget. So you'll be getting an annual budget. It lists all the services and all the amenities that you pay for. Bulk cable is a service, it's a common expense, and everybody has to pay for it whether you use it or not. There are people that don't use the golf simulator rooms. Sometimes you see a condo with a golf simulator. Just because it's there and you don't use it doesn't mean you don't have to pay for it. Everybody pays.
And obviously, I guess if you wanted to get out of paying for it, you'd have to convince everybody at the condo board meetings that nobody wants cable anymore, and that's probably not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Your board will decide that.
Okay, the second scenario you have for us is that the condo building, and this is a common one, doesn't allow dogs. But my friend told me as long as I have a service dog, then I can have a dog. What are the rules around this?
Oh, that's a real problem. If you see a building and there are dogs walking around the hallways, don't assume that you can also have a dog. What you need to do is check your documents before you buy a condo. If it says no dogs, that means no dogs. Now, the reason you may see a dog there is because someone may have a disability. They may need the dog for therapy, or it's a service dog. But in that case, it has to be for reasons of a disability, and it has to go to the board has to approve it. So don't do it. Don't bring in your dog until you find out whether you can have it or not.
And I imagine the board wants documentation too, right? It's not enough to say this is a service animal. They want some sort of proof from a physician, someone else.
That's right. You have to have some sort of disability in order to have it. So you just can't have a dog because it's a service dog and bring it into the condo.
All right, the third scenario, a person says, I think our condo should change management. I want to vote for a change. How do I do it?
Well, you know, you are a unit owner and you have certain voting rights. Your voting right is to vote for your board of directors. And one of the major functions of a board is to govern and manage the common elements and the units in the corporation. And they do this by hiring a property management company. That company is going to be managing the building in accordance with an agreement that the board of directors enters into. So as a unit owner, you can voice your concerns. You could tell your board members that you want to change management. You don't think they're acting in the best interest of the condo, but it's ultimately the board's decision.
And ultimately, I imagine this contract that is signed, this agreement, is probably for a certain amount of time. So even if the board agreed, you might be locked into a situation?
Well, there are changes to the Condominium Act, and there's now a requirement for the managers to be licensed in management companies. There is a 60-day termination right. So these contracts can be renewed, and you can get into new management agreements on 60 days' notice.
Now, this one is a little bit scary if you're the one who's having a problem with noise. Someone has complained about noise coming from my unit. I want to know who has complained. Can I get that information? I'm afraid if I'm on the other side of it, I'm the person who's complaining. I want someone knocking on my door angry.
You know, noise issues are big issues in condos, and they're always very difficult for managers and board members to handle. Because somebody complains about noise, you're making noise, but you don't think it's unreasonable noise. So what is the level of noise that's acceptable? And when you get complaints, you want to know who's making them. Well, the Condominium Act protects the privacy of individuals. As a unit owner, you're entitled to get records. There's a record request process, and you're entitled to get certain information. You're not entitled to get information about other unit owners, so you're not going to find out who's complained about you. You're only limited to information that you're entitled to under the Condominium Act.
That's sort of good to know if you're the one who's having the problem with the noise. The final one, number 5, our condo's having its annual meeting. There's a board position open. I want to run for the board, but I'm not an owner. I'm a tenant. This is actually a situation more and more people are probably going to find themselves in the rental culture. Can they actually get on the board?
Sometimes. So it's really important when you're looking at the condominium that you're in to check the bylaws. The Condominium Act itself has minimal qualifications to be a board member. In fact, you could be a board member if you're over 18, if you're mentally competent, And sometimes we wonder about that. And if you're not a bankrupt. Those are the minimal qualifications under the Condominium Act, but each corporation has its own bylaws. And some bylaws permit tenants to be on the board. So you really have to check to see what your condominium corporation has in its bylaws.
Anything popping up in the next little while that anyone who dwells in a condo should know about? Changes, regulations, rules?
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of changes since November. We've had amendments to the Condominium Act, and they're coming in phased approaches. One of the new entities is called the Condo Authority. So there's going to be a place for owners to go to get information. It's limited right now to records disputes. But when I mentioned noise before, noise disputes will be going to the Condo Authority, which will help move things to the authority rather than the boards and management.
All right, fascinating stuff. Always great to get your insight on this stuff.